Today's apologist claim: intelligent design is a scientific theory. I keep coming back to debunking intelligent design because there are so many different ways to take it apart. To begin with, intelligent design, or ID, is an attempt to give scientific justification for concluding the existence of an intelligent designer who created life in all its diversity. So let's see how well it succeeds at this goal. As you probably already know, every scientific explanation starts by developing and testing a hypothesis using these 6 basic steps of the scientific method. 1. Make an observation. 2. Propose an explanation. 3. Construct a hypothesis with testable predictions. 4. Test your hypothesis by doing experiments. 5. Analyze your data and draw conclusions. And 6. Communicate your findings to others. If you want to test whether an intelligent designer created life, there's nothing wrong with proposing that. But to construct a hypothesis, you have to provide some way to potentially prove your explanation false. This is called falsifiability, which is the basis of the scientific method. Without it, you have no way to know if your idea is wrong, you have no way to distinguish it from any other unfalsifiable claim, you don't have a hypothesis, and you're not doing science. The problem with intelligent design is that it provides no testable predictions for falsifiability. Let me walk you through how this works. The ID proponent says, "I have observed that biological processes resemble how our factories work, and DNA resembles how computers work." The scientist responds, "Okay, that's your observation, so what is the explanation you would like to propose?" "Well, because we create factories and computers, and we are intelligent designers, perhaps life is also intelligently designed." "Great, so what testable predictions can you make that could potentially prove that explanation false?" And that's where it ends. ID proponents usually object to this conclusion, claiming that the similarities between biological processes and technological processes is the evidence. But no, that's the observation. Claiming that that is the evidence is merely an assertion, and it is not capable of falsifying intelligent design. So some ID proponents have tried claiming that if we can find an example of something being irreducibly complex, that would be evidence supporting intelligent design. But since not finding anything that's irreducibly complex couldn't actually disprove the explanation, it's not a falsifiable explanation. Worse, there is no way to determine whether something is irreducibly complex. Every proposed example that ID proponents have given so far, like bacterial flagella, complex eyes, hearts, brains, etc., has been shown by biologists to have a plausible naturalistic explanation. But even if we didn't have such explanations, there would be no way to know whether the naturalistic explanations don't exist or whether we simply haven't discovered them yet. Do you see the problem? Again, if you can't provide any testable predictions that could potentially prove your explanation false, you don't have a hypothesis. Intelligent design can't be falsified, so it fails to meet even the minimum requirements for a scientific explanation. For that reason, it doesn't qualify as a hypothesis and certainly doesn't qualify as a theory. Now, for comparison, let's run the theory of evolution through the same test to determine whether it's scientific. The evolution proponent says, "I have observed that fossils appear increasingly different from living species as we dig down through the fossil record. Human fossils appear only in the uppermost geological layers, with birds first appearing much lower down, followed by mammals, dinosaurs, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and so on, until we find the oldest fossils are from simple single-celled species." Okay, that's your observation. So what is the explanation you would like to propose? Well, perhaps the oldest, simplest life forms gradually evolved over the course of hundreds of millions of years into fish, then amphibians, then reptiles, then dinosaurs, then mammals, then birds, and eventually humans. Great, so what testable predictions can you make that could potentially prove that explanation false? Well, if we find any species appearing earlier in the fossil record than its ancestor, like human fossils below the first mammal fossils, that would falsify my proposition. So would evidence that the Earth is far too young for life to have evolved. So would evidence that species don't share the same biological architecture which changes over time. We should also expect to find fossils of species transitioning from one taxonomic class to another, and, okay, that's enough to demonstrate you have a hypothesis. You'll then need to test those falsifiable predictions. And that's what the scientific community has done for more than a century and a half, with the evidence repeatedly failing to falsify the predictions and instead confirming each of the claims, even when new sciences came along, like genetics. That is why the evolution hypothesis graduated to a theory and became the most well-supported theory in all of biology, and arguably all of science. So evolutionary theory clearly qualifies as a theory, while intelligent design fails to meet even the minimum requirements for a hypothesis. That means intelligent design is not a scientific explanation for anything at all.